Hey soulmates! On today's episode, I'm going to show you how I created this structured design on this dress. Kindly stay tuned. First, you want to create the pattern using your pattern paper. And then I did that already. And for this, I'm going to be using velvet for this tutorial. So I used the pattern to cut out my crinoline net like so. And then I went ahead to open the holes of the on the pattern. So the reason I cut the crinoline net first is because I want it to also cover the holes. So that's why I didn't cut it after opening the holes. I hope you understand what I mean. So next I just went ahead to use my paper scissors to cut out the openings like so. And then I used this really thick gum stay to harden my my velvet. So using the rough side, I placed the rough side on the wrong side of the velvet because that's the side that has the gum, and then I used my steam iron to iron it, for the velvet to have some sort of thickness. And then I went ahead to cut out 2 layers. Just like this. So I placed it, pinned it down carefully. So when you're doing this, be careful because now that you have openings, it's easy for your pattern to not be flat. So you pin it down carefully, and then my assistant used a soldering iron to cut it out, but I don't think it's necessary. In fact, it's not necessary for you to use your soldering iron. The reason it's not necessary is because velvet is not a fabric that would fray normally, and you would understand why I'm telling you that it's not necessary for you to use your soldering iron, because the soldering iron, the velvet was so thick, and then the soldering iron left some rough edges within the holes. So you don't have to use your soldering iron. Just go in with a very sharp scissors and patiently, carefully cut out those holes. So yeah, are you noticing the rough edges? You don't have to use your soldering iron. So if you use your scissors, you'll get a neater cut. And then yeah, so this is what we have. And then this is like the order of placement. So you're going to place the crinoline net and then place another layer. Mind you, they are doubled. The velvet is doubled. So just the same way it was doubled when I was cutting it out. Yeah, that's how it's supposed to be, so it can be thick. So I went ahead to use my copper wire so that the structure could, stand properly. And then my instant glue, I used my E7000 instant glue. And then I'm going to show you how I did it. So I just used my copper wire and placed, along the edges. Notice that I didn't let the copper wire get to the tip of that, the structure. The butterfly structure. I just placed it like this. So you're going to see, where I stopped by the time I am done. So I went ahead to apply my glue like so, after I had already bent my copper wire to get the exact amount of copper wire that I needed for that part. And then I carefully placed the copper wire on the glue. And then it's an instant glue, so it just takes little time for it to, solidify and then hold down the copper wire. And then I went ahead with another coat to secure the copper wire like I did here. And then I did this other part. So I slowed down the video so that you will see the details. Notice that the edge, the pointy end of the copper wire, I didn't let it get to, the tip of that point, because I don't want it to become like, a weapon. Not that when you go close to somebody to now poke the person. You want it to serve the purpose, which is to create structure, right? But you don't want it to, injure you or anybody. So you're going to, apply your glue along that part. Notice that I bent the copper wire, ahead of time to get that shape. And then this is a thicker copper wire compared to, the ones that they sell that are rolled on, a small cone, cylindrical cone, something, I don't know, cylindrical material, something like that, yeah. This one is a thicker one, so they sell it the way it was in the video initially. It's usually rolled and held together. It's really thick. And a scissors cannot cut through it, just a plier. So here I was just, bending the wire properly to fit in. And at this point I had gone, through all the edges like so. So I want you to notice the difference. If you don't put your copper wire, it's not going to stand. It will just be, wobbly. Even a crinoline net will not make it stand. But the copper wire created the accurate amount of structure that I needed, because I didn't need to do anything extra. I didn't even need to go in to put copper wires within, those spaces in the middle. The ones at the edges were just great. And then this is the crinoline nets that I cut initially. And then notice why I didn't open the, holes on it, because I just wanted it to be, I wanted it to fill up those spaces. So that's why I didn't open those holes. And then I put another layer. So you want to go ahead and sew it down along the edges. You can either use your needle and thread, or you can use your sewing machine. So I did not have access to a sewing machine because I needed to finish it overnight. So I went ahead to use my glue first of all to hold it down, and then I used my thread and needle to hold it down. But a sewing machine would do a faster job, and because we still surrounded it with cup chain, so yeah, it covered the stitches. You notice the hand stitches I did to hold the two layers down. So you just apply your glue along the edges over the area where you sew down the layers, and then that's where you place your cup chain. So I used the matching fuchsia pink cup chain, and then my instant glue, I used my E7000 instant glue. You can use your T9000 instant glue. And then this is what it looked like when I was done. I put two cup chains side by side along the edges just to, cover the rough work there. Notice the spaces in between. Please use your scissors, don't use a soldering iron. And this is the result, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.